I feel like I want to call our audience Highwater Trekkies. I don't know why.
Oh, Trekkies. I kind of like that.
I just be like, hi, everybody.
I know. I feel like that's what we do every time. Well, we're back.
We're back. I say every time, okay, well, we're back.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with you every time that we are back. And we want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you're listening, Katie said we might start calling you guys Highwater Trekkies, and I'm kind of into that. So
that's your collective trail name.
Yep. I like it.
It is cold today. The sun's out, but it's cold. And I think it's going to be cold for a while.
Sounds like it's going to be cold. I have to say again, 1 week ago today, we were recording outside, and we are back indoors, and probably will be indoors more.
Yeah.
Besides for like intentional trail time recordings and things like that, but not as much casual lounging outside happening right now.
It might make our episodes move a little quicker, actually.
True, maybe we should try that. It's motivation.
But we thought that this would be a good time of year to touch a little bit on winter hiking and backpacking, a little bit of winter safety trips. I'm sure if you guys are like us, you kind of keep an eye out and have maybe seen the stories that seem to be popping up really frequently lately about mishaps. And
it's hard to miss.
It is, and it's a little scary, so it's always unfortunate to come across those, and it makes you maybe double think. Is that a word?
I think it is. Today it is. It's 2 words, but
it makes you think twice maybe about some of your winter adventures. So
for sure, slow down, pause, consider what could go wrong, or you don't maybe want to focus on that. But I think when it's a matter of your survival in these temperatures, I think we all need to stop and consider what's required to make sure that we come home safely in cold winter weather. So I think it's a really timely conversation to have. And like Katie said, I just feel like there's constantly sad stories in the news. Not even just like in the outdoor world news, but, in the headlines.
Yeah.
Pretty frequently of people coming to sad endings out in the outdoors. And a lot of times just because they weren't prepared. So we hope to have a little conversation about that today and maybe prepare ourselves and help you prepare for some cold weather outdoor time.
Yeah, and as always, there's probably always going to be something we miss here and there, but just do your research.
Do your research. Let us know.
Yeah.
Send us a line and let us know if there's something that feel like we really need to know because, we're open to be educated. So to begin, I just want to make the point that it's often day hikers and not backpackers or overnighters that run into emergencies because they often do not bring along gear that they would need to stay overnight if a situation arises.
Yeah.
So I wrote here, to prepare like an overnighter, even if you are only day hiking, be prepared to spend the night, even if you have zero plans to do so. So I think one thing that involves is always to bring your 10 essentials, even day hiking, especially if it's cold.
Yeah, we've mentioned before that the 10 essentials are good for day hiking in general, but I think that's like 2 or 3-fold in the winter.
Right. Absolutely. I don't have them all here in front of me. I think off the top I could probably get close to naming all 10, but I'm not going to try. So we'll include them in our show notes.
Yeah.
We've talked about them in previous episodes. I think we probably have some lists on our social media and whatnot. So go check that out, but it's an easy Google away.
It is.
10 essentials, bring them. But we'll be talking about some of these essentials as we go as well. So anyway, I would suggest to always hike like a backpacker, even if you are just day hiking, especially in cold weather.
Agree.
Another important tip, I think, especially in nasty weather, is to always let someone know your agenda. And you might consider hiking with a buddy.
Yeah, that's something I made a point to write down to under proper prior prep, which is always important, but especially in the winter. Have a plan, tell someone your plan, but I really think the buddy system is a good way to go most times, but especially in the winter. Conditions are just different.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, a lot can go wrong, and the types of things that can affect you winter hiking, like having someone there to help you kind of respond to those situations could really make the difference between life and death.
It's so true. And when you do maybe get into a bad situation in cold weather and maybe you're dealing with hypothermia, one of the key elements to that is that you don't realize what's happening to you. Mm-hmm. So having a buddy there, I think, to watch out for each other, to keep tabs on each other is never a bad idea.
Definitely.
Something else I would suggest is to watch weather forecasts before you go out and maybe even while you're on the trail. You might consider finding a way to be able to receive weather updates in case there is a bad situation coming. You might need to know.
Yeah, and that's, the weather is location specific, but I would say that applies everywhere because, if you're in a snow-heavy area and have snow storms moving in, you should also be aware of avalanche-prone areas. Here in the Ozarks, we might not be dealing with snow as much, but when we get a lot of rain, we still, it can still flash flood in winter, right. But being wet's even more dangerous, so.
Right. And I don't want to get into this story too much because it is just quite sad, but there was a tragedy that occurred on the Ozark Trail several years ago where a really warm January day blew in with a terrible ice storm, and unfortunately there were lives lost, and it's just a terribly, terribly sad thing. So with that being said, I just really want to reiterate that weather conditions can change drastically in a really short amount of time, especially here in the Ozarks, but other places too. And related to weather, something that you should probably keep in mind is that you're just dealing with less hours of daylight in the winter.
Yeah, and another aspect of that is that realistically, if you've planned a longer trip where you're maybe trying to make certain miles, you are going to be slower, you're going to be having to carry more weight, and you have limited daylight. So I think going back to prior preparation, I think it's worth practicing and making sure you really know how to set up your camp in dark, because it's very likely you might be setting up camp in dark at least a couple nights in the winter.
That's good advice. Something else that I read and I didn't really think about, but it makes perfect sense, is to choose a well-marked trail or a highly traveled trail. If you are planning on backpacking in winter weather, you might not want to go out in the wild backcountry wilderness where you don't know where you're going and people don't know how to find you. If you're on a well-marked, well-traveled trail and something does happen, you're going to be somewhat accessible than as compared to being in the backcountry or something. So it's kind of your comfort zone there, but the further out you are, the further you are from help.
Yeah.
Having enough supplies to last you until you get help, I think, is also important. You might be waiting a while if you did get in a situation and have to call in. It might be quite some time before they find you. So bring lots of supplies. And I think a really important one for any time of year, but never be ashamed to turn around if you're just not feeling safe or that you're making a good decision. There is no shame in turning around. And in fact, I would think that it's actually something to be proud of, to recognize a limit and step back from it.
Yeah, I think that preparation in general is just so much more important in the winter. We've talked a lot in general about really planning ahead and knowing your route and all of that, and I just think that's way more important in the winter. To really study your route, anticipate conditions that could arise or issues that could arise along that route, and just, know if you're ready to deal with that, I guess. But like Sam said, I think you just really need to leave your pride and your ego at home and know when to turn around. I saw someone express this as a rule of thumb of make sure you can undo whatever you do.
Oh, I love that.
And I think that can keep you out of a lot of really bad situations. Whatever you're walking into, whether you're getting ready to climb a hill or descend down into a valley. If you're not confident that you can backtrack, then don't do it.
That's really great advice. Maybe for life in general, somewhat.
Yeah.
Really something to pause and consider in all aspects of life.
So, yeah, I thought that really stood out. I think that's a great rule of thumb to keep in mind. And, winter hiking in general, I think over preparation is kind of the name of the game in a lot of different ways. But
what proper prior preparation? Is that what you said? I love it.
Proper prior planning.
Proper prior planning. That's some alliteration that I quite enjoy. So one of the very most important principles to follow when you're hiking in cold weather is to do your very best to stay dry. I saw it written on a website that moisture is your enemy, and that is correct.
Yeah, I think no matter where you go for your information, this one's going to be at the top of the list.
Right.
So I think this is probably an aspect of over preparing for winter hiking, because staying dry means you need dry clothes to change into. So one of the things that I kind of put down was bringing extra dry clothes. It goes back to anticipating that you're probably going to be carrying a little extra weight because you want lots of dry sock options and
good point,
etc.
And perhaps emergency situation, you might need them. Yeah, extra clothes. What's another important thing to keep in mind when dressing for outdoor weather? Layering, right? That's a big one.
Layer up.
Layer. You want to be able to easily add or remove layers as needed. It's important to not overheat. Obviously, you don't want to get too cold, but it's easy to get hot in waterproof gear and whatnot. And what you'll end up doing is sweating inside your gear. And it's really no different than if you jumped into the river.
Exactly.
When you're sopping wet inside of your stuff, and you can get hypothermic just as quickly. So I would suggest to choose wicking layers for your base, not cotton. Say no to cotton in the woods.
Cotton is not your friend in the woods.
No. I would suggest synthetic or wool base layers. I have synthetic, but I want some wool. I love merino wool everything, so my next base layer will be merino. But my synthetic ones are nice too.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of... Yeah, I don't have a merino base layer yet, I don't think. But I'm dreaming of it. I have probably some elements I could sleep in if I had to, but I use them for day hiking, so... Or
off
for
topic.
hiking during the day.
Well, not really off topic, but a little reroute, of course. But I saw Old Navy sells merino base layers.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've always been slightly creeped out by Old Navy. I don't know why. I think their commercials are just always ill-advised to me.
I kind of agree with that, but I really love their overalls.
Who is your marketing team?
Fire them.
They seem like they would probably be an affordable option.
Yeah, it didn't look like they were too bad. Maybe like 30 or 40 full price. So
on this topic, but side note, I have really been doing some research on where I can source merino cloth for not too much, and I've been kind of dusting off my sewing machine and making some plans to maybe start making some of my own.
I love that.
I can practice. I have other fabrics that I could practice with first, but I really feel like for like a basic t-shirt or tank top or leggings, I think I could handle it. And especially if it's a base layer, no one's going to see it anyway.
Right.
So
I love that.
Make
some and I'll buy them from you. That sounds amazing. Well, I at one point looked at merino sheep and like what that entails because
long-term goal.
Yeah, like it's expensive. Not a lot of merino sheep in the United States, but there are like merino mix sheep. So, maybe someday.
That would be incredible.
I know. Anyway.
Yeah, we got a little off track there, but the point is, merino wool, synthetic, moisture wicking.
Yeah, we love merino. Synthetic's fine too, but get that moisture off of your body. Something that I would like to take backpacking in the winter is a nice down jacket that packs up really small. Down can be super duper warm if you get, a nice fill. They are not waterproof, however, so I would recommend still at least having a waterproof outer layer.
Yeah. As a rule of thumb, I think that's probably the layering system you're going to see recommended is like your wool or synthetic base, your mid layer of, maybe a fleece or a puffy. Also, like, you're not limited to one mid layer. If it's super cold, like, you can have as many really as your body can handle.
Right.
And then your outer layer, they usually call it like a shell. There's hard shell, there's soft shell, but essentially it's water and windproof. So it's protecting everything underneath. You do still want to look for ventilation, so things like pit zips, but that's also kind of the point of being able to shed layers as you need to.
Right. It's a fine line a little bit, I think. I do like the idea of outerwear with the ventilation openings and whatnot. I think that's a really smart solution to not getting sweaty in your outerwear. But you just have to pay attention to your body and what's going on and don't ignore it if you're getting too sweaty or if you're getting cold, and just try to adjust as it happens and don't ignore.
Yeah, and if it's not like it's raining on you or whatever, I think it's important to remember also that you can layer your feet and your hands, what you're wearing on your feet and what you're wearing on your hands. But in general, your warmth doesn't all need to come from what you're wearing, like on your torso or your mid-body.
Right.
One of our rule of thumbs from forever is like keep a warm head, warm hands, and warm feet. And you can adjust those mid layers as you need.
So true. Yes. Hats. You can layer hats, insulated boots, good socks, mittens, gloves, all of these things. You're going to want them. You're going to miss them if you don't have them. A hat to sleep in, help keep you warm at night. All of these things are going to really help not only make you more comfortable, but help you survive if you did get into a bad situation.
Yeah, this is sort of a side note, but not really. I was kind of taken aback by how many random little things they make out of down these days.
Really?
Like the down booties that you can sleep in.
Oh, yeah.
You can down hats and balaclavas or whatever they're called. Like, you might look pretty hilarious, but if you can afford it, the appeal in that is that it's an extra layer that's really easy, like lightweight and compactable, so it's kind of easy to just throw in.
Right. Nothing really compares to down in that way. Yeah. For the warmth, for the weight and whatnot. So, of course, you'll want to probably source items that have ethical down used in their products, but that is a conversation that I think we hope to get into at a different podcast episode. So I would just recommend changing out of wet clothes as soon as possible. If you did happen to get sopping wet, fall into a creek, any of these things, you got to get out of those wet clothes.
Yeah.
I would also recommend bringing sunglasses and wearing sunscreen. You might not think in the wintertime you would need those things. First of all, you can get sunburn from light bouncing off snow. You can damage your eyes, maybe not long term. I think you can long term if you get too much bright sun and glare off of snows, but you don't really want to be out there struggling with your vision because you don't have sunglasses and you're hiking in bright snow. So all of these things, really no different than hiking any other time of year. Maybe they just are a slightly different item. You still need a hat. You probably just need a warmer hat, So, well, and continuing on, discussing here how we would suggest staying warm out in some winter weather, I think we should talk about how we sleep outside in winter weather and what that would look like, and how can we stay warm and stay safe when we're camping out in winter weather. I would suggest always carrying a shelter, even if you are just day hiking, even if it's just a tarp. I would always carry something.
Absolutely. Emergency blankets.
Right.
Bivvies, things like that.
Yeah. Obviously, a 4-season tent is going to perform much better than a 3-season tent in the winter. I think, there's a temperature line in there somewhere that you probably wouldn't want to take a 3-season tent below, but it kind of just varies on your comfort level, maybe your location and moisture levels and all these things. But obviously, a 4-season tent is going to provide much more protection.
Yeah, and warm winter sleeping systems, something that I wanted to point out is if you aren't really able to invest in having a completely separate winter sleep system. There are ways that you can work around that. You can get a sleeping bag liner to help give your sleeping bag a little extra warmth. You can also double up your sleeping bags. I've seen a lot of people talk about this, and I'm not really going to go into it too much, but they kind of have like equations out there that help you estimate what the temperature rating would be if you doubled sleeping bags, or you can also kind of, in theory, get a ballpark temperature rating based on the height of the loft. So I'm not going to talk about that as too much, but that's an option. If you had like a couple cheaper, like 20-degree bags, you could always double those up. That goes back to sometimes having to carry more weight in the winter.
Right.
And then it's important not to forget about the pad. Again, if you're just trying to adjust what you already have, you can kind of double up your pads if you had an inflatable and then another little foam one, or even use the emergency blanket like I've talked about many times.
Yeah. But one good thing would be if you decided to invest in a sleeping pad that has a high R value, meaning that it is well insulated and doesn't let the cold transfer to your body. So I feel like if you are into winter camping, it's probably a solid investment. And they're not you can find pretty good pads for not too outrageous of a price. You can find them at an outrageous price as well, but you can find pads for not too bad. So I feel like that is a worthwhile investment and one that I would like to make because my pad is not very well insulated and I have been known to double up, but I would like a new sleeping pad. But anyway, onward.
On sleeping pads, also something that it's kind of a good idea any time of the year, but I'd say especially in the winter, is to get yourself a pump sack or maybe a tiny pump and inflate, if you have an inflatable pad. Inflate it that way rather than blowing into it, because the moisture, as the temperature drops, will drop the R value. And
that's
so,
interesting.
I mean, it's kind of important other times of the year too. If you have to blow it up, it's fine, but it does make it more prone to losing a little bit of its R value when the temperature drops at night, but also it can eventually grow mold inside of there. So that's not really something that I've carried thus far, but that makes a lot of sense to me. And so I think that's worth noting. And you don't necessarily have to buy a pump sack. I've seen people just use like garbage bags, and it might be kind of a pain in the ass, but anything to keep you a little warmer or comfortable, I feel like is kind of worth it. So
true. I'd never really thought about that before, but it makes total sense. So along the vein of gear that you use at camp, gear using while backpacking, there's lots of other gear that you want to keep in mind if you're hiking in winter, right?
Yeah, I mean, location dependent, again, as always.
Right. I guess we're talking about cold winter hiking generally. So I think a big one off the bat that you're going to want to keep in mind, especially if you rely upon electronics for navigation, is that you have to keep your batteries warm on anything that has batteries in it if you want them to work for any amount of time. So what that can look like is carrying your phone, extra batteries in your interior pockets while you're hiking, and then slipping them right into that sleeping bag with you at night. But other people may deal with it in a different way. But that is probably would be my method of attack for keeping my batteries warm.
Yeah.
Another good point, I think, and this is, again, part of the 10 essentials, but perhaps consider carrying a map and compass, even if you don't think you would ever use them, in case your batteries do go on the fritz on your navigation device. It could be a bad situation, so probably always a good idea to carry the map and compass. I would suggest probably to take trekking poles. I know if it's really snowy, some trekking poles maybe don't work well unless they have like the little snow skirts on them. So you just have to figure out what works best for you. But I think you would definitely want some poles if the weather is icy and snowy.
Yeah.
What are some other gear tips and tricks and suggestions we might have, Katie?
Well, we don't deal with this much in the Ozarks because we don't get a ton of snow. But depending on where you're at, you might need spikes for your shoes. You might need actual snowshoes. just snow and ice appropriate gear if that's kind of the route that you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't know much about that, so I can't tell you anything other than, like, those things exist.
Crampons.
I will probably learn more about them in the future because as we've been kind of talking the last few episodes, we're both kind of having the itch to maybe try some different terrain and broaden our experience. But
I feel like some crampons would be nice, though, just for, like, we do get ice storms here in the Ozarks quite a bit, and it can be slicker than a lot of things. I probably have to cut that because I about let like a grandpa let a grandpa saying out. But anyway, I just think that would be kind of fun to have.
Yeah, we do get a lot of ice. That's a fair point. And on that note, like, you also need kind of different footwear in the winter. A lot of people, you know, you love trail runners and stuff for hiking, but in the winter it is a little more important to have waterproofing and maybe waterproof and insulated.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point.
That I honestly hadn't really thought about. I don't know why. I feel like my hiking boots are relatively warm, but they're definitely not insulated. So
yeah,
depending on how cold it is.
Yeah. Might be something to consider in the future. I would suggest to always bring matches, lighter, fire starter, even if you have no intentions on starting a fire. You'd be happy to have them if you did get in a bad situation that you had to wait out a night or whatnot.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of had in caps, was to bring multiple sources for making fire.
Yeah.
Because it's just more important. It's something that can provide you warmth and dry you off if you need it. So
at the end of the day, it could solve a lot of problems for you. I also like to bring hand warmers. Not everybody's a big fan of those, but
I am.
I enjoy them.
And, like, hot hands, hot feet. And did you know they make actual, like, bigger patches now that you can put, like, on your lower back?
No.
I don't know how big they are, but
oh my goodness.
They exist, just FYI.
Thank you. I may have to find them. It sounds delightful.
So the other important gear item that's affected by cold is your stove and fuel system. It's important in the winter to bring extra fuel in general, especially if you're somewhere with snow where you might need to be boiling it for extra water.
That's a good point.
But the right kind of fuel is kind of important to bring depending on how cold it's going to get in your area. Like the upright canister stoves that use the propane and isobutane blend, they work to about 20 degrees Fahrenheit, but they rely on the pressure inside the canister to generate their output. So in really cold temperatures, they lose reliability because as the temperatures drop, they depressurize and the fuel won't vaporize. So even if you're keeping it warm as much as you can, if you're like in sub temperatures, that's not the best option for you in general.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting because that's what I have. Perfectly fine for the Ozarks, but that's something I'll have to consider if I'm going to go hike somewhere where it's just going to continuously be below freezing. So they also make inverted canister stoves like the Covia Spider. I personally had never heard of that.
Okay.
I did look it up, but that style will work down to about 0 degrees Fahrenheit because they burn canister fuel in its liquid form.
Okay.
And so the best option for cold temperatures is the white gas liquid fuel stoves like the MSR Whisper Light because they can burn down to negative 40, which blows my mind that you would even want to be out in negative 40, first of all. But this style stove allows you to pressurize the fuel bottle with its little pump as you cook, so you're able to maintain that pressure that you need regardless of the temperatures. And then I just had a small note that even if it's not super cold or anything, if you have a jet boil type stove system, I kind of think it would be worth potentially bringing like another secondary small pot that you can actually boil water in, like over a fire, just in case something malfunctions or you're needing, like maybe you do run out of fuel and you need to actually use a fire. You could potentially use your jet boil over it, but you're kind of going to ruin it. So I think it's worth maybe, depending on how long you're going to be out,
that's a good point.
carrying a secondary little vessel that you can boil water in.
That's a really good point.
So that was a lot of information. I just found it very interesting because I'm interested in winter camping. So I was kind of happy to learn that, okay, I might need to reevaluate my stove situation.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, since we're on the topic of cooking food, let's talk about food and water. Obviously, it's going to be pretty important to bring water, to be able to get water, and to be able to use electrolytes at least part of the time. You don't have to all the time, but it also keeps pretty fueled out in cold, nasty weather.
Yeah, I think it's not as instinctive to be drinking your water when you're cold. But
that's a good point.
Every bit is important. So
yeah.
Mindfulness is important here.
Right. Something else you might want to keep in mind is how you're going to keep your water warm. Even while you hike, if it's cold enough, it can freeze on people. You can get koozies type things for water bottles. Some people, like I have one for my Nalgene, and some people will slip a hand warmer down in between the koozie and the Nalgene to keep it warm. I thought that was a good idea. I also just thought it was a good idea to store your water bottles upside down because ice tends to form at the top. So then as long as it's sealed tightly, not leaking on you and giving you a problem, then it'll be easier to actually access the water. You're not going to have a frozen up bottle that you can't get a drink out of. I thought that was pretty smart.
Yeah.
A simple but smart tip. I did read that hydration bladders and tubes, they are made to not freeze too easily, but they tend to, from what I've read. A lot of people have had a lot of experience with their hydration bladders and tubes freezing up. So if that is something you rely upon, you might want to keep an extra close eye.
Yeah, they do. So they make insulating things that I saw that you can put on your tubes. But also one of the easy tips I saw was that every time you take a drink through your hose, just blow air to get the water out of the hose itself.
Like back into the bladder. Yeah. That's great advice.
That's kind of an easy tip. I kind of do that anyway sometimes because mine tends to drip a little bit if I leave too much water in the
It's kind of annoying though. That's a great idea.
So yeah, you get to drink your breath later, but it's better than not being able to drink through it all.
Let's talk about filters, Katie. They do require some special care out there in freezing cold weather, do they not?
They do. I geeked on this a little bit.
I'm excited.
I don't want to get too in depth, but as you've probably gathered by now, I'm a little bit obsessed with water. So I was looking into, I read this one article, and it basically goes through all of the things that can be an issue, and then there's a little bit of solution. Like at the end, I kind of was like, well, gosh, what do I bring? So anyways, he was saying that the hollow fiber filtrations like your Sawyer Squeeze or your Katahdin Be Free, they are really prone to breaking when they thaw after being frozen, even if they were only partially frozen. So that's where Sam was talking earlier about like keeping things kind of more on your person and insulated. Depending on how cold, that may be enough to just really be mindful of keeping that thing warm. There are higher end filters, pump filters like the MSR Guardian or the Platypus Quick Thaw. I can't speak for the Platypus one. I know the MSR Guardian runs over $300. Ooh. So it's a huge investment. They are able to withstand a limited amount of freezing and thawing. So there's something that might be a little more reliable. Might not have to worry about quite as much. But other lower end, like not necessarily lower end, but most other pump filters like the Katahdin Hiker Pro and the MSR MiniWorks, which is what I have, they're ruined if they freeze.
Okay.
So they also brought up that ultraviolet purifiers like the SteriPen can fail if batteries freeze or lose power, which you talked a little bit about. Lithium-ion batteries won't freeze like alkaline batteries, but their discharge rates can drop too low to operate in cold temps.
Okay.
So again, I think you can still bring it, but you have to really work hard to keep those batteries warm. Liquid chemical purification drops like Aquamira or liquid bleach can also freeze.
Wow.
The reaction time of chemical purification tablets slows down in cold temperatures by quite a lot. So some of the solutions to that, again, are to just keep your water filtration and purification options warm, batteries warm, filters warm, carried on your person and with you at nighttime. Chemical tablets you can still use. It's helpful to warm the water that you're purifying first But you also have to plan ahead because it still takes a significant amount of time for them to work appropriately. I think it's probably a good idea to maybe carry a secondary water option in case one fails.
That's a great idea. Probably any time, but especially in the winter when things are possibly getting frozen and breaking.
Because you can still get very sick in wintertime.
Yeah.
Like the water, like those things still exist.
Right.
So I'm not familiar with these, but there are electroabsorptive purifiers like the Rapid Pure and Grail. I think I've heard the name Grail, but I wasn't really familiar with the electroabsorptive, I can't say that word for some reason, adsorptive technology, but they are less susceptible to damage by freezing, and they can be used through multiple freeze and thaw cycles. So I think they're probably a hefty investment, but if you want one that's maybe more reliable for cold weather, that was brought up. And then, of course, you can always boil water to purify. But again, that requires more fuel. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I suppose that's always, if you're prepared for it, a secondary water purification option. Again, you might want to make sure you're carrying a vessel that you can use over an actual campfire to boil your water so that you're not just using up all of your fuel. And I did not write down the times, but I do know that at elevation it takes longer to purify your water by boiling than it does at lower elevation.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting too.
So what is it 5 minutes? I guess that's kind of what I always had heard. Like, what is like the recommended average, do you feel like?
I've heard a lot of different ones. In this article, he just said like a couple minutes in general, and then more like 5 or 6 minutes at elevation. But that's a little less than what I have heard from other sources. So
yeah.
I think whatever you're comfortable with, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my takeaway from some of this research was that there's certain elements of your gear that if you have the desire to or know that you're going to be hiking in very cold temps, it may just really be worth investing in some of these other more reliable things that, you know, it's like it's possible to use these other systems, but it takes a lot more kind of time and attention to, you know, and after a while, there's maybe only so many things you can carry on your person.
Right. I was thinking like, where am I going to put all my stuff?
Right.
That's a good point.
Maybe we should invent a mid-layer that like has pockets all over the
pockets.
place. Like
That's a pretty great
pocket,
idea.
Filter pocket.
From our merino sheep.
Yes. So I found that super fascinating. I tried to nutshell it so I wouldn't be crazy.
No, that's really
It's interesting.
I find that very interesting and helpful, and things I find myself curious about often. So it's interesting. I will be careful to put my Sawyer in my pocket or in my sleeping bag.
Yeah, I'm thinking it might be worth making like a little pouch or something to put my stuff in.
That's a good idea. Well, talking about beverages, foods, things, I think a good recommendation for staying warm out there is to bring a camp stove, whatever type that you choose that's most appropriate for your situation, and have some warm food and beverages out on the trail. It will literally warm you from the inside out. And it's just going to be good for morale, I feel like, too.
Yes.
I would consider, if you were hiking in really cold weather, maybe bringing an insulated cup. Yes, it's going to weigh a little bit more, but the ability to like sip on a hot beverage maybe all day long is going to keep your body temperature up. So it's something that, you know, I could see worthwhile is to bring an insulated cup along. Of course, not everyone brings stoves backpacking. You know, in the wintertime, it would be hard, I think, for me not to have a hot meal. But not everybody likes to deal with that. So I would recommend looking for freeze-resistant meals. And for everyone, I would recommend bringing some freeze-resistant snacks because you're obviously not going to be able to cook every time you want to stop for a snack. So you don't want to bring a bunch of stuff that gets hard as a rock and
break a tooth out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To like make an emergency dentist trip or something.
That would be terrible. I think for food, some of my notes were basically just to carry away more than you think that you'll need. Because even if you're not battling rough terrain like very deep snow, you're going to be expending more energy in general just trying to regulate your temperature and keep yourself warm. So it's even more important to just bring a lot of food, have, like Sam said, options, warm if you want it, ready to eat if you want it, but tons of calories at your disposal.
Yeah, your body needs them even if you don't feel hungry.
And I feel like we've touched on this in one of the episodes before, but also a great way to kind of try to keep yourself warm at night is to eat right before you go to bed. Mm-hmm. It is going to kind of help you stay a little bit warm and help with your energy. So
a similar tip is to eat a bunch before you go. And we've talked about this too, but that is something I read specific to winter backpacking is to fuel up before you ever leave the house.
Yeah. So. Same with water too.
Yeah.
Hydrate and fuel.
Yeah. Don't start out depleted, especially in difficult weather.
Yeah.
Well, in food, we've talked about this before. It's such a morale booster for me. So I'm all about the food. Bring food. Lots of food.
Absolutely. And for me, warm food would be like an essential if I consume it. Because I'm just picturing hiking all day being cold, but like looking forward to warm soup or whatever. Then it makes it feel better.
I think so too.
So I didn't really know where to put these particular things, but just a few random little tips and tricks. Mm-hmm. If you are in a place, I saw this mentioned and I never would have thought about it, so I did want to share it. If you are somewhere where you're dealing with deep snow, watch where you set your gear down, especially little things like tent stakes. They're just going to get sucked into that powder and you're never going to see them again. So I thought that was a fantastic trip.
Such a good tip. So good.
And then I had a few just little, tips and tricks for getting and staying warm. We already talked about hot hands, feet, patches, blah, blah, blah. Another thing is, it seems like a no-brainer, but just to move. Just keep moving because sometimes, and I know this just from how I act sometimes, but when you're cold, sometimes you just want to shrink into yourself and kind of, pull your arms in, and you get a little bit stiff. So just, motion is important. Just stay in motion. Stillness equals stiffness, and stiffness doesn't feel good in the cold. Sam mentioned Nalgene's. Again, you can put warm water in your Nalgene. You could also warm stones over a campfire, kind of wrap them up and put them in your sleeping bag. Obviously, don't get them crazy hot.
Right. Don't melt your bag.
That's maybe a little bit more primitive option. Warm yourself up before crawling in your sleeping bag, push-ups, jumping jacks, whatever, but your sleeping bag isn't going to make you warm, but it'll keep you warm once you kind of warm your body already before getting in there. That's something I have heard multiple times, and I always forget because I feel like by the time I'm ready to crawl in, I just crawl in, but get your heart rate up a little bit, warm yourself up with motion a little bit. And then one more thing is just to warm yourself more effectively, think about applying warmth to your pulse points. Just like you might put something cold on your wrist or whatever to cool yourself more quickly, you can do that with your hot hand, your warm water bottle, whatever you have. So, random tips and tricks.
Those are good. We're going to be doing push-ups in our tent. And I just wish someone had an image of that.
If you pass by our tent at night and you hear heavy breathing, just keep moving.
We're getting buff. Getting super buff. I also just wanted to say always to bring your first aid kit. I know that's on the 10 essential list, so it should probably go without saying, but you still need it. And I would especially consider having a way to communicate with the outside world, whether that's a phone and with service or one of those nifty GPS devices with the save me buttons. Probably not a terrible idea, especially if you are going in backcountry and whatnot.
Yeah. I know that I'm going to invest in one of those eventually.
Someday.
And I feel like cold weather hiking is a pretty good incentive to go ahead and bite the bullet on that at some point.
Right. I mean, no other time of year is just the weather unless it's some freak storm or something, the weather's just not going to kill you just by like being present outside.
Right. Shit can happen anytime, but it can happen much faster.
Yeah.
And like in a much more severe way in the winter and the cold.
Which I guess brings us to our next topic at hand here, talking about cold weather hiking. And that is, what are the actual signs of hypothermia? If you or your partner were to unfortunately struggle with that out on trail. Officially, hypothermia describes when your body temperature drops below 95 degrees. The first sign of hypothermia, or just frankly being cold, is shivering. That is your body's natural reaction in trying to warm you back up. Typically, hypothermic people get uncontrollable rattling shivers, though. It's not just goosebumps or whatnot, I want to say too that it doesn't have to be terribly cold to get hypothermia. Really, wetness is the problem.
That was something I wanted to touch on as well, is like you can get hypothermia at 40 degrees
right
if you get wet and chilled.
So again, wetness is the enemy. I thought this was really good advice, especially when you're hiking with someone else, keeping an eye on each other. Some of the warning signs can kind of be summed up as looking for the umbles, watching out for the umbles, the stumbles, the mumbles, the fumbles, and the grumbles. And I just thought that was kind of cute.
That's a good way to remember it.
I know. So hypothermia slows your motor coordination. It will make you lethargic, drowsy, feeling exhausted. You may have memory loss or confusion, slurred speech, clumsiness. Clumsy hands is, I think, a big kind of red flag that maybe something's going on with you. So that kind of describes like the umbles, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what makes hypothermia so dangerous, because you may not realize what's happening or even have the capacity to like take action, because low body temps, they are affecting your brain. It's not really something you can control or necessarily I guess you can prepare for, but like once that happens, it's happening, and you may have absolutely no awareness of what's going on. And that's kind of to circle back, like that's why I think the buddy system is so important, because you can be very prepared, but if something happens, if you trip and fall into a stream and you don't have someone with you to help you out, maybe, like, I guess if you take care of yourself fast enough, you can avoid it. But if it sets in, there's no secondary person there to help you realize what's happening.
No. How scary would that be?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the hypothermic confusion can really prevent a person from realizing what's going on. It can lead them to make risky choices and risky behavior, as far as, maybe pushing on when they shouldn't, not getting help when they should. And I was reading that many people that come up with hypothermia don't realize it until it's too late. Most people. So don't think that you're going to be the outlier and be like, oh, I'm too cold and my confusion is overcoming me. You're not going to know. You're going to think you're fine. So, and I did want to mention just a couple other physical symptoms. Your skin can become cool to the touch. It may turn pale, red, like bright red or blue. You may experience shallow breathing. There may be a weakened or erratic pulse. So obviously all of that would be quite terrifying. You might see yourself, well, I guess you wouldn't, or you might see your partner suffer a loss of consciousness, and that's when you know you're probably in pretty bad trouble. Yeah,
that would be terrifying.
Yeah. So those are all things you want to look out for in yourself, but hopefully your buddy, we say take a buddy, and keep an eye on each other, and because it sure can sneak up on a person fast, and it literally can be caused by sweating under your rain jacket. Yes, so exactly. And who doesn't sweat under a rain jacket? So be careful. try to stay aware. And we'll talk quickly here too about if you were to run into this scenario out in the woods or whatever, or your friend. Yeah, what do you do? How do you treat this situation? I would recommend getting out of there as soon as possible, but that's not always an option. So what are some other things? What do we do? Like, let's say our buddy is having some mild hypothermic type symptoms.
So I wrote down, get the person to warmth or shelter. Remove any wet clothing.
Get them off.
Yeah, get it off of there.
Yeah.
Have no shame.
No.
Find a way to warm the center of the body, the chest, neck, head, and groin. In the field, you're not going to have a whole lot available, so skin to skin contact is an option. A warm water bottle. Again, heated wrapped stones. Whatever you can, really. Warm drinks, if you can make warm drinks to get into them, that can help. Obviously, if they've lost consciousness, that's not possible, but that can help. And then once the body temperature has increased, try to keep them warm and dry and wrap their whole body, including their head and neck, in a warm blanket, sleeping bag, whatever you're going to have out
Try
there.
to insulate them, right? And I was reading, like, sugar water is good to kind of get something else in the system. I thought that was a good advice. Probably anything that you had to add would be good.
Like electrolytes,
yeah.
Maybe. I don't know if I'd have sugar. But...
There's the cocoa. Maybe bring a cocoa pack, you know. I saw you can get instant apple cider packs. And that kind of talked to me. Yeah. I know.
So if it's very severe, like Sam mentioned, they might be unconscious. They might not be breathing or seem to have a pulse. So it's a really good idea to know CPR.
That was the last thing on my list, but maybe one of the most important is to know CPR.
And then I just had a little note that the source that I was reading was saying that in many cases, a hypothermia victim may appear dead, but they can be resuscitated successfully. So keep going until they either gain consciousness or you get help.
Yeah, don't give up on them. Their pulse may just be so weakened that you can't pick up on it, and breathing as well. So
yeah,
it's kind of an amazing thing. And reading about people that have had severe hypothermia and their process to heal, it's pretty interesting. I really didn't know how. I knew it could kill you when you were out there, right. But you can have long-term damage to your organs when you get home, and like several of your organs. So it's kind of scary. I mean, obviously it's scary, but there's more to it than just you're going to get cold out there. It can affect you the rest of your life.
Anything that affects your brain is terrifying to me.
That is a good point.
I just wanted to say, like, on a personal level, again, kind of not to keep harping on it, but sometimes I think when we think of hypothermia, we're thinking of like these very snowy, like super cold temperatures. And I just wanted to point out, like, in general, I did used to live in Alaska, and I have told people so many times here that there have been times that I have been way more cold here than I ever have been in Alaska. And the difference is the moisture.
That's what Adam
Alaska,
says,
most
too,
of the time,
about Wyoming.
it's dry.
Yeah.
You might have tons of snow, but it's dry powder. Yeah. And, it could be 40 degrees here, but it's damp, and I've been way more chilled here. And then I just also wanted to say, our very first backpacking trip that my husband and I took to Minnesota, it was September, and I don't know exactly what the temperatures were, but I mean, they were probably 40s or 50, they were probably 50s even, maybe high 40s, but we had a storm roll in one day, and it just was like torrentially raining, and we did several miles in that, but we were soaked, our gear was soaked, and we made the decision to call a shuttle, and luckily we're able to, because we were so cold. Like, my muscles were so stiff. Like, my hands, I could barely move my fingers. And when I think back now, I'm like, man, that could have gone so terribly.
You were flirting with it there.
Yeah. And, like, I know more now. I think we've talked a little bit about, like, that newbie naive protection. Yeah. And we were so bummed. But when I look back now, I'm almost thankful that we got those experiences. I talked a little bit before, too, about how heavy our packs were. And so in some ways, getting rained out was a blessing because also I think our knees and joints might have fallen apart.
Yeah.
But that's when I look back on a lot and just kind of reflect on of like, it wasn't that cold. Like we had very nice daytime temperatures, but I think that's a prime example of how it's the wet that's your enemy. It really doesn't matter because when I look back now, I'm like, man, I was starting to show some of those signs.
Yeah.
And again, it was like difficult to talk to each other and communicate in some ways, like not so serious yet that we hadn't really, like we didn't lose the ability to sort of reason and function, but like it was starting. And so I'm so grateful that we had phone service and were able to call the shuttle service there locally and get out because, that was a few hours of hiking in the rain. And I don't know what temperatures, but not what you would think would be enough to do it. So I just kind of wanted to share that.
That's interesting. I bet you were disappointed coming off trail, but now looking back, I hope you're proud of yourself a little bit for the decision you made.
It was disappointing back then, and there was a little bit of that. Like once we did get somewhere, get showers, get warmed up, I feel like there was a little bit of that ego bruise of like, oh gosh, we could have toughed it out.
Now I'm fine.
We did feel okay about the decision, but I think there was maybe a little bit more of like, oh, maybe we could have done it. And now when I look back, I know 100% that we made the right decision. So, but yeah, I just think that's one of the main things to remember about winter hiking in general is like, I think ego needs to be left behind on any trip, but winter hiking especially, like things just happen really fast, and if you don't come home to even talk about the trip, it's not like it was some great feat that you accomplished.
That's a good point.
Anyways.
Well, let's quickly touch on another type of bodily harm that can come from cold weather hiking. And we're talking about frostbite.
So frostbite, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're more prone if you're not dressed adequately, you're too exposed, and if you have poor circulation. So even though layering is important, make sure that you're not like constricted too much in those layers. The signs are redness and pain in the skin. You can have white or grayish, yellow skin that feels unusually firm or waxy, which I found that description kind of disturbing. And then numbness, which is what I think most of us think about.
Yeah.
And so if you start noticing those, you just want to get somewhere warm. If it's in your feet and toes, try not to walk on them too much because it can kind of increase the damage. Don't rubber massage, which is kind of instinctual, but that can cause more damage also. And then you want to warm the areas with warm things but not hot things because the skin's just more sensitive and you can kind of end up doing more damage than good. So you can, stick your fingers in your armpit, put warm water in your water bottle, stuff like that.
And probably get to a medical professional as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with hypothermia or frostbite, I would recommend just as quickly as possible.
Right. Even if you're bringing your temperature back up out on the trail, you still want to be going home and getting attention.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's still an issue, like Sam just talked about.
Like you can have liver damage and kidney damage, things you wouldn't think about, So we're just trying to look out for you guys, you Highwater Trekkies out there, and keep you warm and safe and moving and grooving in the wintertime.
You're important to us.
You are. We love you guys. I don't know. I think that's all I got for you today, though.
Oh, okay. Well, I had one more thing.
Okay.
As I was sort of like looking up different things, I like to listen to podcasts sometimes, and I came across this podcast, which appealed to me because it's called Katie Says, and it's even spelled with a Y like mine.
I was wondering if it was an IE, Katie.
There's a difference.
We won't go into that.
It's now called Move Your DNA. I will link it in the show notes. It's episode 37. I think it's called Moving Through Winter. So Katie Bowman is a biomechanist, and then the person that she's also talking with is Danny Hemmett, and She just described herself as a movement geek, which I kind of liked.
Okay.
Anyway, they were having a discussion about cold and moving in the winter and, how important it is to still go outside and get motion. And I thought this was kind of an interesting point to apply to backpacking because it goes back to that proper prior prep. She was talking about acclimating yourself, basically. And so some of the main points were just that exposure to temperature causes various muscles, including the teeny tiny ones all over your skin, to contract in order to deal with the temperature variance. So she was talking about how our bodies are capable of generating heat, but we kind of need to train those heat generating muscles, which we can do by regularly exposing ourselves to cold. It doesn't have to be extreme, but just introducing our bodies to these temperatures on a routine basis helps us develop those skills of regulating our body temperature. She also kind of touched on how discomfort is so often a mental state. And so we can kind of help ourselves by reframing the discomfort of exposure to cold temperatures as adaptation, like we're adapting to colder temperatures. So be reasonable, of course, but if you're at home or like in a controlled environment, she was basically saying like, if you're going outside for a task that's going to take a few minutes or whatever, just don't wear your jacket or your hat or your gloves, and give yourself kind of little exposures to help train yourself. And so she was saying it's basically a skill development like anything else. And so I thought that was kind of interesting in terms of backpacking because we do talk a lot about how we prepare our bodies beforehand as far as like exercise and the nutrition and all of that. So I don't know. I just thought that was another kind of easy way to prepare yourself if you know you're going to be going out in cold weather. Like, don't necessarily go from like sitting inside your warm house all day to hitting the trail and just being exposed to these cold temperatures. You can prepare yourself by exposing yourself a little bit.
Yes, which sounds uncomfortable. But I once had a yoga teacher tell me in class, just because it's a sensation doesn't mean it's painful. And like differentiating those two made such a difference in my yoga practice and my just exercising in general and my workout. So I just think that that's a good thing to maybe keep in mind if you decide like you want to do some cold exposure.
Yeah, and that's essentially what she was saying, but in a different way. I kind of like expressing it that way. But she was saying, the discomfort doesn't necessarily mean that there's an issue or that it is pain. It is an adaptation. It is your body adapting to a different condition. And so I think this could be applied a little bit to hiking in hotter weather too. Obviously, this isn't going to protect you from like the adverse effects of those conditions, but it can maybe just help it be a little bit less of a shock to the system.
Yeah, make you more comfortable. And I don't think most of us just want to be uncomfortable constantly when we're out there. We expect it a lot of the time, but
anything you can do to make yourself more comfortable.
I think that that's really interesting. And, I hadn't really thought about that. I know a lot of people are really into cold exposure type therapies right now. And I could probably launch into another hour talking about that, but I won't. But that is really interesting, like framing it as a way to prep for just being outdoors in the cold weather. And
she did mention Wim Hof and go into that a little bit, but I also was like, we're not going to go down that road.
Yeah.
So.
No. All you ice bathers out there, bless you. Anyway.
So yeah, I feel like proper prior planning was the name of the game for me on this episode. That seemed to be what was standing out to me as far as if I were to go out when it's way more cold. I feel like I have a little bit better grasp now on where I might want to focus my attention.
Yeah, me too. I learned some things researching for this episode. I really enjoyed it.
So what is at the very top of your gear list, like your winter gear list? Like what would be the first thing you might invest in?
Good question. The very top, if I could just go buy anything for winter hiking, that's a really good question, Katie. I have to think about that for just a second. Maybe a really warm sleeping bag? I'm not sure. Yeah. What would yours be?
I don't know either. I do think that I would like a better sleep system.
Yeah.
But the water filtration thing really got my wheels turning because obviously water is one of my hang-ups. I just have that slight phobia of like being dehydrated or not having clean water available to me. So that might be something I would focus my attention on if it was going to be like significantly colder temperatures than we might deal with here in the Ozarks.
Right. Well, and something I meant to talk about when we were talking about sleeping bags is that they are rated. Most sleeping bags are rated, but you might want to pay attention if it's the comfort level or the survivability level, because those two can be quite two different things. So it's worth noting. But yeah, I might get like a really super warm sleeping bag. If I just had to like maybe upgrade what I have right now to be more prepared in colder weather, maybe not like sub-zero, but just colder weather, I would probably say a nice sleeping bag liner.
Yeah.
And a nice high R value pad would be my like immediate upgrades.
Yeah, I think focusing on the sleep system makes a lot of sense because sleep is really important. Mm-hmm. Since you are expending so much more energy during the day, I feel like sleep's probably even more important than it might normally be. So comfort is important. And I'll tack onto that just real quick. Something that I saw that stuck in my brain was that they were saying, like, if you have to go pee at nighttime, just get up and go pee. Because it's so easy to be like, oh, I can hold it, or it's going to be cold out there. And they were saying, like, just go. You can warm yourself back up. Like,
the movement is good for you, too.
The movement's good for you, but, like, you're not sleeping when you have to pee. And I'm like, that's true.
That is a great point. Yeah, I do think the sleep system's probably a good place to focus in on because during the day, you know, you're moving. So you are, like, generating your own heat while you're moving, but you're not while you're sleeping. And you got to be able to lie still and stay warm at the same time. So I'd say that's probably a good point for anyone to start focusing on if we're talking about just cooler weather temperatures. But if we're talking about like really cold weather temperature, that I would have to probably replace most all of my gear.
Yeah. There's kind of a line as far as what I want to experience versus what sounds like absolute hell to me. Yeah. Like getting a fuel system that's rated down to -40. I'm like, I don't want to camp at -40.
I don't know where I would have to go to camp.
I feel like you would have to be climbing Everest.
Yeah, like, are you climbing a Himalayan mountain?
Right.
This is perfect for you. Then,
I mean, I don't really probably want to be doing it too far below zero in general. Mm-hmm.
I mean, below freezing will be a new experience somewhat for me. I mean, I've flirted around freezing several times, but never too far below it.
Yeah.
So I am interested. I do just have a 3-season tent, but I'm kind of curious how it might do slightly below freezing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another one. I would have to probably get a different tent. But
how low a temp do you think you've had your tent out in?
I've camped in the 20s in it.
That's what I thought. And you did okay.
I feel like the tent itself was fine. It was my sleep system that was maybe more the issue.
Yeah.
I don't feel like a different tent would have made that much of a difference.
Really?
Once I sort of altered my sleep system a little bit, I was a little warmer, but I think I've slept in like mid to high 20s in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty good. You know, some 3-season tents are actually 4-season, depending on where you live. So
True.
You can kind of stretch those things into the winter, depending on the weather, though.
Well, I really enjoyed this discussion, and
Me too.
I gotta say, like, I had a lot of fun researching for this one.
I enjoyed it too. I learned some things, and it was fun. But I think that's about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to maybe try some out. Do some winter hiking, have a fire, and some apple cider.
Yeah, that sounds so wonderful. I do want to tell you guys out there that I hope you've had a good holiday season, and the new year brings you many, many blessings. And we can't wait to be back and talking with you guys, and hopefully meet some of y'all maybe, if we don't already know you. And just wish you all the best in the new year, and we hope that we can all grow and heal and spend time outside and do these things together, even if it's just us coming through your headphones. So
yeah.
Happy New Year, folks.
Be safe, be warm, Trek on.
Yeah, stay dry. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
I will say we do continue to miss out on all of the that's what she said. So when I listen back, we just don't think of it in the moment, I guess.
Too much pressure.
Moisture.
Moisture.